guys, thanks for tuning in. Today I wanted to talk a bit about gain staging. I had a few requests from a couple of subscribers to talk about how I set up a mix to prepare it for to be mastered. And there's really two steps to it. There's gain staging in the beginning, and then there's volume setting or gain staging in the end once you finish all your mixing and effects. Let's talk a little bit about why we do this. So in digital recording, 0 dB is the limit. Anything above 0 dB, you're going to be peaking, right? So peaking is bad. Peaking is basically distortion. So if you have any peaking, that distortion gets compressed by a compressor. Whatever effect that you have in the chain will have basically make it worse and worse as things go along. And if you have a lot of tracks and you have peaking on multiple tracks, it just adds up and it just makes your mix sound bad. So it's really a good idea to get your gain levels right. It's something that I picked up from people listening to podcasts and reading and stuff. And there's some, there's a level where you want the peak gain to be on your tracks, and it's somewhere between 18 and minus 12 and minus 18. And what that basically gives you enough headroom to compress and do the other things that you need to do to make a track sound good. So if you have a track that's bumping right up against 0, it really gives you no headroom to play with, and you have better chance of clipping and making that track distorted. So what I do is I'm using Studio One here, and this is just a song that I put together. It's a blues shuffle that I kind of wrote that I have on YouTube. You can hear it on a different video that I have up. And what I've turned off all the effects and compressors and stuff that I put on each of these channels, and I'm just basically showing you starting from scratch. So I'm starting at all my tracks at 0 dB. Nothing is on in the main bus. Okay, so basically I'm starting from scratch, right? So I'll just give you a listen. I already have like 7 peaks, right? So 7 places where I've gone over 0 dB. That's no good. Because when you're going to master and you're going to try to compress all that together to get the volumes up using like an L2 compressor from Waves, which is a really great compressor, by the way, that I use on every track, every mix that I master, you're going to just be compressing all those peaks and it's just going to sound bad, right? So what I do is the first thing I do on a track is I put a Pro EQ. I'm using Studio One, so I use the Pro EQ, and I use it for 3 things in this first part in the chain. I use it for gain staging, which we'll talk about in a second. I'll use it for low cut and high cut. You can see here I have a low cut and high cut on these drums, and I use it for EQ to pull out any sounds or frequencies that I don't want. So basically subtractive EQing. So this one plugin has a whole lot of functions that it can do in just one slot. My philosophy is the least amount of plugins you have in a track, the better, right? It's less processing. So I try to do what I can in Pro EQ, which is a really great plugin. So let's talk about gain staging now. What I want to do here is I want to make sure that my highest peak on this track is no more than like minus 12. Some people will say minus 18. Some people will say minus 9. I like to keep it at like minus 12. Minus 12 gives you plenty of headroom, gives you 12 dB headroom between minus 12 and 0. And that's a lot of room to compress and do whatever you have to do. So what I'm going to do is this Pro EQ plugin has a nice gain knob here, and I'm going to use this meter here. You can see here. And I'm going to use this meter to make sure that my top peak is no greater than minus 12. So let's just run through this. You'll see what I'm doing here. And actually, it's probably best to solo this. See, I'm just bringing it down slowly. see right now my peak is about minus 12. That's right where I want to be. So you can see I took 5 dB off, okay? But I gave myself now enough headroom so that I'm not going to ever have any chance of peaking and causing distortion in the plug-in chain. Because I'm going to be putting compressor and EQ on this channel, and I want to make sure that when it's all said and done that it's clean, okay? So that's the first track done, and what I'm going to basically do is I'm going to go through each one of these tracks, and I'm going to do the same thing, okay? So I'm going to pull this one up. This is my left guitar. I got this, I'm going to have this, I got this centered, so you can see. All right, so I'm taking minus 5 off of that one, and I would bet that let's move this back over to 70 where I had it. I would bet that this channel is pretty much the same, or this track I should say. That's where I had the other one, minus 5.04, and it's right on that minus 12 line. That's perfect. So that's perfect, right on that minus 12 line. Now these tracks are basically duplicates of the other ones, so I'm going to basically assume that these are pretty much the same here. Let's just look. Let's listen to this. No, they're a little. I need to take a little bit more off. Okay, you see how this is right at minus 12? That's perfect. So I'm taking minus 7.56 off of that, so likely it'll be the same for this one. There you go. So that one's done. You can see you can move through these pretty quickly, right? So let's go to the bass now. I'm going to solo that, bring that up. Let's listen to the bass. Okay, so minus 3.96. I already had this one down. I guess I was playing with it before. So it's about minus 4 off of 0. Oh, I just peaked up there, so I want to bring that down. There you go. And you really do have to go through, most of the track to be able to make sure that you get all the peaks, right? So you want to be certain. It takes a little bit of time, but you want to make sure you do it. So that's the bass, and let's listen to. I've got a piano track here, so let's solo that. And again, this is something. This and subtractive EQing are really the only times that I ever use soloing, unless I'm want to listen to a tone on a track. But when I'm mixing. Once I finish the subtractive EQing and the high cut, low cut, and the gain staging in the beginning, then it's all like I listen to everything together, right? So let's listen to this one. This is the organ. Okay, that's not going anywhere, so I'm not even going to touch that one. That's not any. The peak is nowhere near above minus 12, and I think the piano is the same. Let's listen to that. Now we want to touch back a little bit. Okay, so I knocked like minus 5 dB off of that too, just to get it where it needed to be, right? So that's pretty much what you have to do with gain staging, right? You set all the levels to 0 on your channels, and you go through each one, and you make sure that you're not going anywhere above. And the number I use is minus 12. You might want to use minus 15. You might want to use minus 18. Minus 12 seems to work for me. And there, when you do that, you're never in any danger of having any clipping. So if I ran through this track right now, I would see no clipping at all. Let's just see. See where I am right here? And together I'm like about minus 6. And that's where you want to be. But I'm not done yet. I'm not done yet. Okay, so that's stage 1. So now what I've done is, let me just turn all my plugins on. Again, these are all set already. Okay. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring everything down to 0, just like I'm doing a mix. Okay. I'm going to bring the guitar bus down to 0, the bass, this. Okay. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix. I didn't bring these down because these all go into the bus, right? And I'm going to mix the final gain into the bus. So assume that I've done all my processing, and now I'm doing my final levels. Okay. And the goal here is, before I bring it to mastering, I want to have probably about 5 dB worth of headroom. Anywhere between 3 and 6. I try to keep it at 5. Okay? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a level meter. Okay? What I do is I put that up, and let's make that a little bigger. Okay? And what I do is I look for peaks, and I could do it with this one here, but right here. But as I'm going to run through this, I look for my highest peak, and I don't want that number to be anywhere above minus 5. Okay, that's the max I'm going to have. So let's just run through this. I'm going to start with the drums here. Let's bring the drums in. Okay. Get it to where I want to get this to where I want it to sound right. Okay, so I think that's about my levels. It's not perfect. I'm doing it real quick here. But you can see here, as I'm going to go through this now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all of the channels that could lower the volume of the mix itself, the volume of the mix. I'm going to select this, this. Okay, so the drums, guitar bus, the bass, the B3, and the piano. Okay, I'm going to select all of them, all 3 of those. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to run through this, and I want my peak here. I can look here, or I can look here, and I want my peak to be no greater than minus 5. So let's listen. I got a minus 4 there, so minus 3, so I want to bring all these down. Right now I think I'm too low, so let me get... See, I saw a -4. That's no good. So I want to bring it down a little bit. Again, I'm looking right here, right? So I think you get the idea. What you're doing is you're controlling all of the gains from each of the tracks, and you're going through and you're making sure that as you run through the song, there's no peak above -5 dB. And that basically gives you, when you bring this into, when you render this down to a WAV file and you bring it into mastering, you're going to see there's a lot of headroom on the final track that you can use for compression, etc., etc. So just to give you an example, now you got to remember, I'm listening to this like with the headphones pretty loud, right? So if I bring this through, let's see, I'm going to have to lower my headphones a little bit here, because now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my EQ. I had some multi-band dynamics on there, which is going to bring up the volume a little bit. And the main thing is I had this Wave 2 L2, okay? And what I did was I'll start this at 0 again. This is a limiter, so I have it at -1 limiting, and what I did was I pushed this threshold up to bring up the volume of this so that I can get the overall average peak to about between -9 and -6, somewhere around there, so that the song is loud enough and it sounds right when it's played on any device, right? So I'm actually kind of mastering in this environment. What I would normally do is I would mix this down to a WAV file and bring it into Studio One's project window and master it there, but I'm just showing you how I did it. So basically I've got all my levels down with a max peak of -5, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to run through this mix and I'm going to boost it up. So let's give it a listen. Hopefully it's not too loud here. If it is, I'll stop it. Okay, good. So what I'm going to do now is you watch this meter right here, okay? Actually, let me bring the level meter up. Okay. Okay, watch this meter now. Remember, I have my limiter right here at -1. See how it's coming up? Where I had it, I'm not using too much. I'm not really compressing this too much. That's about right where I want it. You can see I'm never going over 0. My average is between -9 and -6. And when I play this on any device, an iPod or whatever, it's going to sound, the volumes are going to sound right. And if you listen to it, there's no distortion. I mean, there's distortion from the guitar. It's meant to be there, but none of the tracks are distorted. Okay? That's how you do it. It's pretty simple. Again, it's important. The first thing, most important, let me get this stuff out of here. Okay, I just did a real quick example here to show you, but the most important thing is when you're running through this track, you want to listen to it. You want to make sure that none of your peaks, any of your tracks, don't peak above -12. That's the number I use. If you want to use that one, fine. If you think -15 is better for you, that's fine too. I use -12. Okay? This is, again, to give you headroom, right? You got to run through every single track, and once you do that, then what you do is you basically bring all your volumes down to 0. You mix your gains to make sure all the volume levels are fine. And again, assuming I've already done like panning and I've done EQing, etc., to make sure each of the tracks has its own place in the overall EQ. Now this is volume, right? So I bring everything down to 0 and I start blending things in to make sure the volumes are right. And sometimes if you're doing it on monitors, you may have your speakers real low, okay? The volume on your overall speakers low. Once I get that right, I'll basically select all the volumes like I did before, and then I'll start bringing stuff down so that none of my major peak isn't above -5. And once you do that, you're probably going to have to raise the volume of your monitors to be able to really hear the mix because you're bringing everything down. But that's okay. The whole goal here is not to have any distortion. All right. Hopefully that explains it. If you have any questions, put them in the comments. I'd be happy to answer them. I hope this was helpful. When I first started doing this, I was, probably like a lot of you guys, where I had like a lot of muddy mixes that I couldn't figure it out. And then once I started to read and learn, they became better and better. But this is probably one of the most important things that I've learned, this particular phase, if you will, in the mixing cycle. And this is really the first thing you do after you track. When you sit down and get ready to mix, this is the first thing that you do, aside from setting your high-low cuts, if you're going to do that on a track, and and maybe subtractive EQing. And even subtractive EQing you probably want to do after you do gauge staging, right? Because those sounds are going to sound differently because the gain on that particular track is lower. So gain staging before you start to do your mixing, and then before you start to do mastering is really two very important steps. So again, I hope this was helpful. Please comment and hope you subscribe. And if you have any questions, just put them in the comments and I'll do my best to answer them. Thanks for watching and have a great day.